Hey there, I'm Soundy, and this is how to make a top-down 2D RPG in Unity. Welcome to episode 2, Better World Building. In this episode, we'll cover how to use rule tiles to speed up and simplify the world building process. But first, what are rule tiles? These tiles, when placed, take into account the surrounding 8 tiles and examines each cell for the presence or absence of a rule tile. The pattern of tiles found is then matched against a set of internal rules to determine which sprite to display. If no rule matches, then the default set sprite is used instead. This functionality makes it ideally suited to automatically placing border tiles around a central design. Let's look at an example. Here we have a design consisting of 9 tiles. Let's examine the process of determining a rule for when to place the bottom middle tile. We can see that this tile consists of a horizontal design and should be situated between a rule tile on the left and the right. The nature of this tile also means it should be featured at the bottom of the design, which can be determined by the presence of a tile above and the absence of a tile below. If we hide the extra tiles, we can see that we formed a generic rule to determine when to place this type of tile. If we generate rules for each of the bordering tiles, we can use this rule tile to automatically place corners and edges for us and save us a bunch of time when world building. As a bonus, we'll explore additional uses for rule tiles at the end of the video. Let's hop over to Unity and see how we go about implementing this in Engine. Okay, so welcome back to the engine. Here is where we left off last time with the islands we created. So this time, let's first, before we make our rule tile, let's do a little bit of groundwork. If we head on over to our world folder and then forest and sprites and back to our sprite sheet, we're gonna need to rename a few of these tiles just to make it easier to find them. Now I've gone ahead and done this already, but just so you can see my naming convention, I've gone ahead and named the tiles in relation to where they'll be in the design we'll be making for the island. So here I've renamed this one to island underscore bottom because this forms the bottom of the design, as we can see here. And then I've gone ahead and named this island underscore top, and then we've got right, which is this side, and left this side. For the corners, these here counterintuitively are not the corners, but in fact these are our corners to our island. So again, I've gone ahead top left, right, bottom left, and these corners will actually form the inner corners when our design goes beyond just being rectangular. So I've named these inner and then bottom right, bottom left, and top right. Now as well, if you want to follow along, we're also going to be working with rule tiles to place down our grass a little bit easier later on in the video. And I've gone ahead and renamed these two as plant 01, 02, 03, all the way through for these. I've renamed our flowers here to make these easier to find, and our grass too. Importantly, I've also renamed an empty grass tile to grass underscore base, and we're going to be using this as part of the first rule tile, so you also need to do that. So once you've renamed those, go ahead and hit apply. I've already done that, so I'm just going to discard that for now. And then what we're going to do is just go down to tiles and then rule, and in here we're going to make our rule tile. So to do that, we right click, go to the create menu, 2D, and then tiles, and then rule tile. So for this, I'm just going to call it island. But with most of my assets, I do like to prefix before them the asset type or some sort of initials representing that type. So in this case, I'm just going to use RT underscore island. That way, if ever I need to search for all of my rule tiles, I can just use RT underscore and that will shortlist them for me. So with the rule tile created, we're first going to head over to the inspector and we're just going to set the default sprite. So in here, we'll type grass and you'll see we have those other grass tiles, but it's the grass base we're interested in. So now we've gone ahead and set that. Before we go and get into the rules, let's place this into the scene so that we can see it in action. So I'm just going to move over to the side first. I'm going to swap to our tile palette. and just set my layer to ground for now, though that doesn't matter for adding this in. But all as we do is drag and drop from the project panel into our tile palette, and that'll add our rule tile. Now, don't be deceived, just because this shares similarity to this other tile, this is in fact our rule tile. So we're just going to go ahead and place this down in a rectangular pattern for now. That's going to help us see our rules as we implement them. So if we swap back over to the inspector, we can now start to create our rules. Now, I've just added this new rule, and straight away our sprite has disappeared. The reason for this is because this rule specifies, like we explained before, here all of these tiles are being ignored. So this rule is actually being satisfied at the moment, because we're ignoring tests for any of these neighboring tiles, and therefore this rule is qualifying. So if we go ahead and set a sprite here, and we're just going to set this to island, and then we're going to go island_bottom, you can see straight away that all of our tiles have changed to island_bottom. So here, what we're doing, again, this rule is being satisfied for all of our tiles, and this sprite has been selected for all of them. So, like we explained before for this tile, we should test for the presence of tiles to the left and to the right and above, but an absence of a tile below. Now to do that, we simply click into our widget here, and we can cycle through the options. So this arrow indicates that this tile should be present. So a rule tile should be present to the right of our tile. So you can see here, these tiles are all satisfying that. These all have rule tiles to their right. However, these tiles here do not. But when I cursor over, you'll see that changes, which is really useful so that we can preview those. So if we now add another test into the left, we're now satisfying this for the central column of tiles. Now we want this design to feature at the bottom, so we're going to go ahead and specify that we wish the tile above to be present. So now we're getting closer, and the tile below, if we click a second time, you'll notice it turns into a red X, which represents that we do not want a rule tile present in this neighboring tile. So for these two tiles, our rules are satisfied, and hence why we've ended up with our sprite just displaying down here and not anywhere else. So with this tile done, we can click the little plus icon here and we can duplicate. Now that we've done the bottom, we may as well do the top. So let's first change to the sprite for island_top we'll look for. So it's just down here. Okay, and we can now invert this rule. So for the top, we wish for no tile to be present above, but a tile to be present below. So by clicking here, we've now inverted this, and here we can click once. This now is ignoring that tile, and click again to have it check for a tile existing below. Now if we go ahead and draw out a bit more here, you can see our rule tile is automatically bordering the top and bottom for us, which is great. This is exactly what we're looking for. Okay, so what we can do now is, if we just fill this out so we don't get confused, if we now look at the left and right, what we'll do this time though is we'll just add another blank rule for this to save us getting confused. So we can go ahead and select our sprite. We'll first do the left facing tile. So this is island_left. And again, we have no rules set here. So this is being satisfied for every tile. What you'll notice though is the top and the bottom, they are still achieving these top two rules because the order in which these rules appear is important. If we drag this to the top, you'll notice all of our tiles change to our left facing island tile. So planning out your order is important. And if you experience difficulties, it could be to do with the order you've laid them out. So go ahead and just double check that while you're troubleshooting if you have issues. So for a left tile, we'll want a tile above and below. So we'll specify that here. And then we'll want no tile to the left, but we will want a tile to the right. So then we'll click twice there, and boom, the left side's done. Let's go ahead and duplicate this out. We'll select the right tile this time. We'll invert to this. And now we're testing, is there a tile above and below? Yep. Is there a tile to the left? And is there no tile to the right? Great. So now we've created a simple island. If we go back to the tile palette, we can use the filled box tool, and we can now draw out some islands for ourselves. Okay, straight away you can see how powerful this is, right? So back in the inspector, let's do the corners next. So if we go to add a new rule, and we first find one of the corners, we'll go with the top right hand corner. Okay, straight away again, it's gone ahead and put that in every tile for us. But if we look at this tile specifically, we know we need a tile to the left and one below, due to the nature of how this corner sits. So one to the left and one below. Now, we can see that the other corners are being excluded, but the central tiles are still being qualified. So what we need to do is say we do not want a tile to the right, and we also do not want one above it. This then specifies our top right hand corner. So if we now duplicate this, change this again, let's take a look for the top left corner in our list. And let's do this side. So we want one below and one to the right. So one below, one to the right, and then we invert that there so that we do not want a tile to the left or above. And now, automatically on all of our islands, you can see we've got the corners done. So let's go ahead and duplicate again. And now let's do the bottom left. We want one above and one to the right. So there's above and right and none down here. Now, don't worry, this is just because we haven't set this sprayed, but it is working. So let's get that bottom left one in. And again, all of them have changed. So this is great. So let's stay zoomed out for this one and then duplicate this rule. We'll do the bottom right hand corner. So one above, one to the left. And straight away, once we set the spray, all of them have updated. This is how powerful rule tiles are. If we need to update our design, instead of having to change the sprites across our whole level, we can simply change it here in the rule tiles inspector, and it will automatically update every tile for us, which is super powerful. Now let's take a look at a quick problem we've got with this design so far. So over here, we've got our island, but if we try and draw another island through it, you'll see we're missing those inner corners. This is why we labeled those earlier. So let's go back to the inspector and let's add a rule for the inner corners. So first we'll go ahead and take a look. We'll go inner bottom left first. So this bottom left inner corner needs a tile to the left and a tile below it. So we want one to the left and one below it. Now this isn't specific enough to get us to get this rule passing in just the area we need it. So critically, we also need no tile featuring in this diagonal. So if we then specify down there that there's no tile there, we can straight away see we've achieved the desired effect. So let's duplicate that out. Let's go ahead and do the bottom right. We're just going to invert this. So we're going to check to the right and below. We'll get rid of these. We don't need those anymore, and we don't want a tile to be present here. And straight away you can see, right, how powerful this is. I mean, look at how cool this is to be able to quickly design these sections of land, right? We're just missing a couple more, so we'll just add those in. So we'll duplicate again. Now we're going to go for this inner upper right. So let's take a look for that. We've got top right here, inner top right. So here we want one above, one to the right. We'll just get rid of those, and we don't want any tile appearing here. So there we go. We're going to go ahead and duplicate again. We're just going to grab this one now so that we are inner, the island inner top left. And then we're going to again just assess. We're going to go, we want a tile above and to the left. We don't need these anymore, and we don't want a tile here. Now, we've now created quite a versatile design that we can use to make all sorts of cool little islands very, very quickly. and we can make our levels really quite interesting by having these designs done very quickly for us. Okay, so we've got all of our corners set up. We've got all of our edges, but what about the grass tiles? If we just head on over to our tile palette, if we want to place down our various different pieces of vegetation, we have to do these manually by selecting them. Now this can be desired sometimes, but there's going to be a lot of our area of our levels that we just need covered with vegetation, and the actual layout doesn't matter all that much so long as there's vegetation there just to flesh out the world. So let's go ahead and create a rule tile to help us do that automatically. So we're going to go World, Forest, Tiles, and Rule again to keep everything organized. Right click, Create Menu, 2D, Tiles, and another rule tile. We'll call this RT, short for rule tile, underscore, and then we'll do plant. Okay, and now we'll just head over to the inspector. Now, for this rule, we're going to go ahead and add a new rule. But instead of us specifying that our output is just going to be a single tile, we're just going to randomly pick a tile from a set of sprites that we set. So in here, this is how many sprites you wish to set. So I believe I've got about 6. So I'll go ahead and type in 6, and then we'll go ahead and look for our plants. Oh, we've actually got 7. That's perfectly fine. We'll go ahead and add our plants in here. So there's 1 and 2. And there's 3 and 4. And then we'll add in 5, 6, and then we'll add a new one. Oh, that was wrong. My bad. We'll add a new one for 7. Okay, so here's all of our plants. Now these options here, the noise option here allows us to adjust the randomness so that we can steer which ones, how it tends toward picking out these, but we'll just leave this at the default for now. And again, we can specify a rule here so that we can create quite complex rule tiles, but for this, we'll just leave it as is. Now, if we just set a default sprite, just so it shows up for us, and we'll set this one as the default, now when we place it in the tile palette, it'll make a little more sense because we'll have a sprite to go by. So with that selected, if we select now in the tile palette, set ourselves to the vegetation layer, and go ahead and start drawing, you'll straight away see that this picks out a random plant for us automatically, right? So that's great. So if we just quickly erase those out and then place this down a little more sensibly, we might want a group of plants here, a couple over here, another cluster down here, the odd one at the end, and again we might have a cluster in the middle here, and then we'll just break up this with a couple at the edges. Now we can do exactly the same again, right click, create, 2D, tiles, rule tile, and then we can call this RT underscore grass. And we can do exactly the same again, but this time for the grass to simplify the process of placing that. I'll first set a default sprite. I'll then create a new rule. We'll go from single to random. If we just check out how many we've got here, we've got 5, so we'll specify 5. But you saw last time we can change this if we need to, so it's not a problem if you need to adjust that. So we can go ahead and drop in all of our grass tiles. Okay, down to 4 and then 5. Perfect. Now, if we go ahead to our tile palette, add in our new rule tile, make sure we're on the vegetation layer. And again, if we just come over here for a sec to just quickly lay down a load of grass, you can see it's randomly selecting those tiles for us to give us that varied look. I'm Control Zing, by the way, to be able to undo this quite quickly. And if we just populate this out with a couple of our tiles now, you can see just how quickly we can now place our vegetation. And the beauty of this as well is if for whatever reason we want to adjust these sprites For example, with our plant, let's say we wanted to make it into a clipboard for whatever reason, we can, and it will do that across all of those tiles it is placed, okay? And then if we, for whatever reason, want to restore that back, we can, right? So this is how powerful rule tiles are. It's not just about the fact it's speeding up, but it's giving us the versatility to make sweeping changes across the whole level, which I think is really cool and really useful. So that's how you can use rule tiles to speed up the world building process. In the next episode, we'll start building the player character so that we can explore the worlds we've been building. Let me know in the comments below what else you'd like to see, and snipe the like if you've enjoyed this so far. Cheers guys, I'm really enjoying making these tutorials. Can't wait to see you in the next episode.